Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Wednesday class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurbhuvaswaha, Tatsavitravare Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodaya. Asto Ma Sadgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. Om Sena Vavatu, Sena Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karvavai, Tejasvi Navadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Today I am going to little elaborate on the topic of grace. What does it mean? How do we get it? How do we feel after we really connect with grace? This grace word, that's an English term. And as we know, no language is ever static. That's why we can think of grace word in many different ways. When we say that Father always said grace before dinner, or she danced with a lot of grace, or you can say that you could show a little more grace under pressure, or by grace are you saved through faith. So you can see that the little different connotations in these different sentences with the term grace. So that's why even in English language, not just only in Sanskrit, a lot of uses for different terms. In Sanskrit, there are several terms for grace. Number of words, frequently translated as grace, with a multiple meanings. Even in a theological setting, and it's purely up to the translator to make a decision of whether to use grace, kindness, or mercy. So that's why these terms, prasad, daya, kripa, karuna, anugrah, and even there's a word in Tamil language, arul, that also means grace. So one word along a large spectrum of expressions of a positive disposition to someone or something. Prasad. Prasad word is frequently translated as grace in Bhagavad Gita. In fact, only in the last chapter, the 18th chapter, 4 times this word has been used. In verse 58, Mat prasadat tarishyasi. From my grace, thou shalt pass over. In verse number 62 of the same chapter, Tad prasadat param shantim. From that grace, supreme peace. Then in verse number 73, Tvat prasadat, from your grace. And towards the end, it says, Vyas prasadat, by the grace of Vyas, Rishi Vyas. If you look at in the dictionary, prasad means offering also, favor also. Daya means compassion, mercy, sympathy, tenderness. That's daya. Kripa. Kripa is We normally say kripa karo. That means doing. Karuna, compassion, tenderness, pity. Anugrah word is for kindness, obligation, favor. So these are, if you look up in the dictionary, you will find these terms equivalent to grace. But it seems pretty clear then that in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna gives his grace to his followers. But again, even in Bhagavad Gita, prasad can take on another meanings than grace. In chapter 2, verse number 64, prasadat adhigachati, he attains tranquility. So prasad word can be used for that too. And if you look a little further at the context of each of the above uses of prasad, we find that Lord Krishna's grace is nothing more than providing those who would be his followers the opportunity to work for their salvation. Who is it who receives the prasad? Let's look at a few more verses from Bhagavad Gita to understand it. Verses 57 and 58 in chapter 18. Mentally renouncing all actions in me, devoted to me as the Supreme, taking refuge in the yoga of discrimination, constantly thinking of me, fixing your mind on me, you shall pass over all difficulties through my grace. But if through egoism you will not listen, then you shall perish. These are Lord Krishna's words. In the same chapter, verse number 62, fly unto him, done for refuge with your whole being, Arjun. From his grace, you shall attain supreme peace and the eternal abode. Then Arjun spoke in verse number 73, my delusion is destroyed and I have gained wisdom through your grace. Krishna, my doubts are gone. I shall do as you command. So in other words, as long as someone practices the yoga that Krishna commands and focuses his entire being on Lord, all day, every day, he becomes eligible for grace. Or perhaps it can go the other way around. With the Lord's grace, it becomes possible for someone to focus his or her entire being on Lord all day, every day, and to practice the yoga that Lord commands, so that he will receive redemption. When we use the anugraha for grace, sometimes it does mean grace in a very strict sense, anugraha. But when the word arul is used, that means you need to be deserved. And when the writers use the word kripa, which is frequently used, it's like a true concept of grace does appear. Kripa is the concept of divine grace in Hinduism. It is the central tenet of bhakti yoga and bhakti movements. So then, even in English language, there is a term grace and there is a term mercy. What is the difference? Because as I told you earlier, no language is static. They keep on changing. but we got to know the real meaning. Mercy is God not punishing us as our sins deserve. That's mercy. Like we say, have mercy on me. I have done something wrong, but have mercy on me. And grace is God's blessings, despite the fact that we do not deserve it. Grace is extending kindness to the unworthy. Anything good that we experience is a result of the grace of God. And often in our scriptures, we see the Kripa word quite a bit too, like a Ishwar Kripa or Hari Kripa, Shastra Kripa, grace of the scriptures, Guru Kripa, grace of the Guru, Atma Kripa, grace of the self. So often we read about these words, so we got to just dig a little deeper into. First of all, we got to understand it's not that grace is offered and withdrawn. Sometimes we think that we are feeling it or we are not feeling it, and we think God just takes it away from us. No. Grace is always on. Just remember with this little analogy of this air or the oxygen. It's up to us to breathe. It's always there. But does it make any difference for the oxygen whether you inhale or you don't inhale? You can stop inhaling. You will die, but it will not make any difference to the oxygen. It is always there. It's not that it is on or off. It is always there. It is just a question of how willing you are when you're open, when you're not. It's the same thing with the grace also. Are we open to receive it? What do we need to do to feel this grace? Because if it's already there, just like oxygen is there, what do? We learn how to breathe properly. We use different techniques. Make sure that our lungs expand and contract properly with pranayama. What do we do in regards to grace? Our rishis, they say, in the daily process of living, learn to forget who you are. I'm talking about the lower self. You forget what you are. You forget what your life is all about. You are just absorbed in God. That's how you feel the grace. That is the best way to feel grace. That's why we try to, in meditation, what do? We transcend this body. We transcend this mind. We transcend our intellect and ego so that we feel the connection, the grace. Just remember, when we forget our body on a daily basis, when we sleep, how smoothly most of us are breathing. We are not trying to breathe, we just breathe. Otherwise, we make ourselves more and more limiting. Or you can understand, learn from the trees. Just standing like a tree, doing everything that has to be done. But simply that. Do for the sake of doing. One time a disciple asked a master, what should I do for my spiritual growth? To receive the grace. He said, sweep the floor, chop the wood, cook the food. That's all at the ashram. Then disciple said, for that, why should I come here? I can do it at home. The master said, at home you are sweeping the floor, your own floor. You will not sweep next house floor. You will chop the wood only for yourself. You will cook food for yourself. You are using every activity to enhance who you are instead of using every activity to dissolve who you are. So in order to feel that grace, we have to dissolve our lower identity. This is all the difference between making our activity or strengthening our karmas or dissolving our karmas. Our karmas can either create more bondage or we can go through the process of liberation. The same action. Either you are acquiring karam or your karam is becoming yoga. That's all it is. Either you are doing your activity to enhance yourself or you are doing your activity to dissolve yourself, which is called laya also. Planting a tree. We all love to plant a tree. Sometimes we think that, yeah, we'll use it, or our children will use it, or the grandchildren will use it. But a yogi plants the tree, anybody can use it. Even the enemy can enjoy it. You don't care who uses it. That's how the activity or the karam or the process of dissolution starts. Otherwise, every activity, even the so-called good activities, they are imprisoning us. I am doing it. It is activity which is entangling people, unfortunately. That's called a karam bandhan. So grace is like the manure for growth. Human beings can achieve capability, existence, and possibility. We don't have to do anything for grace. The less you do for your lower self, more you do for others, more available you are for grace. That's all. Any kind of activity should not become a limiting factor. So grace means nothing to a whole lot of people. If you are too full of yourself, you are unconscious of grace, even though grace is flowing on you, but you are unconscious of it. Think about it, whatever is holding all this up, planets, galaxies, solar systems, one name for it is grace. When we say grace, we are not looking at a certain kind. We are looking at that which is the basis of everything. Because we do not know how the solar system is held in place. Theories come, then the new theories come. And another one. We really don't know. You do not know how the whole universe is held in place. You do not even know how you happened, actually, really. How so many cells are staying together and make our life happen. We don't really know. Because if you have the explanations, but still you do not have the answer. If you knew, you would create another one right now. So when there is so much that you do not know, but everything is still happening, obviously, it's not an accident. So whatever is making all this happen, that energy, that force, we call it grace. But now the question is about making yourself available. How do we really feel that we are receiving it? If you have no illusions of your own, you will be available to grace. Illusions, which is called avidya also, agyan also. If you are simply here, simply, you will be soaked in grace. You cannot enjoy it unless you are sensitive. So that means you got to be conscious. Grace brings many, many benefits. All of us are in grace, but to develop the capability to draw sustenance from that, so that this life becomes an expression of that grace. Once you are releasing this, because if grace is everywhere, it's inside you too. You got to release it. You will see that you will enhance this grace inside you more. Release it, emit it, give out, radiate it. That's what we have to learn. Just remember that when you eat food or breathe or drink water, anything, it is a grace. Otherwise, 2 parts of hydrogen and 1 part of oxygen becomes life-making water. It is grace. All that is happening is grace. Because you consumed grace, you must conceive grace, and you must emit grace. Look at the tree. What does it do? We give a filth to it, but it gives us fragrance. It absorbs our carbon dioxide and gives us oxygen so that we can live properly. So if you learn the way of the tree, if you learn the way of the rock, you will emit grace. So bottom line is, try to help others. Try to be a grace for others. Because definitely every creature has that power. So are you capable of emitting grace that you consume? Another question comes when we talk about grace is effort. Effort or grace. Those are 2 different dimensions of our existence. About doing something, making something happen is 1 dimension. And the second dimension is allowing something to happen to you. So 2 different aspects. Now the question is, which one is more and which one is less? Can I do it all, or there is nothing I can do? Or do I just allow it? If you are capable of just allowing it, that will be very good for you. But if you are the kind who just allows things to happen to you, do not expect people around you to understand anything about you, because they will not understand. So sometimes people don't understand what it means to allow. Doing something that most of us understand. But doing is a limited possibility. Doing becomes very laborious also. It's almost like if somebody wants to bake a bread, want to bake bread, how much of it do you do? And how much of it do you allow? There is an equal proportion of both. If you do not knead it hard enough, if you do not have a proper oven, if you do not set the temperature right, because all of that is you are doing. If you don't do that, nothing gonna happen. But if you're not willing to allow, you are willing to close it and simply sit there like a, didn't even turn the oven on, did not do all that, and just sat there that I will allow it to happen, it's not going to happen. So in other words, if you are too much of a doer, or if you are not doer at all, because if you are too much of a doer in this example, you want to open the oven every few minutes, look at it, you will not have bread. You will have just something else. This goes for not just only the cooking. Growing a plant, you plant it, then you have to wait, allow it to grow. If you dig it again, every day you dig it and see how much it's grown, how far the roots have gone, you know what will happen. Bringing up a child, or even bringing yourself up on the path of spirituality. If you become too anxious, nothing gonna happen. When you are bringing yourself up, there is a certain amount of striving and doing on your part to be done. Without allowing, it will be an extraordinary, difficult process, incomplete process for a very long time to come. So both are needed. And if both have entered your life at the same time, consider yourself extremely fortunate human being. Because some are waiting for gods to do things for them. And some are trying to do everything by themselves. You are extremely fortunate if action and receptivity both have come into your life at the same time. Because this doing and allowing, both are needed for growth of anything. You know how to perform action, everything that you can do, you will do. But if you have the sense and the gracefulness to sit and wait for that which you cannot do, so it is that dimension. So remember, it's the combination of these two. That's what we practice here. People learn to do something about themselves. At the same time, people learn the humility and waiting also. Because if we become too anxious, we are getting attached to the results, nothing gonna happen. And this waiting with humility is called devotion. That's what bhakti is. So that's why devotion is needed too, to really feel this grace on us. Without devotion, you cannot wait. And devotion is love. Without love, you cannot wait. If you do not look up to something, you cannot wait. So to be able to do everything which is needed, having the necessary tools and the empowerment to do things about your life, at the same time having the necessary sense and grace to wait and to be able to receive. The question is, can't I do it myself? Combination of both is best. Doing alone will not do it. If you push one too far, you may lose your grounding. If you push your receptivity too far, that means you're not doing anything. You're just waiting for the God to do something or the Guru to do something. You don't even know whether you're being receptive or just being lazy. Okay? Because you are not even doing your sadhana. All you are doing is that God will do. Whenever the time comes, I will feel it. That's a laziness. That's a tamsikta. If you do try to do everything yourself, not allowing anything to be received, then it is like a plant which is trying to grow without sunlight. It will grow, but we know it will be pale. It will not produce any flowers or fruits. It will be a long time before it can produce anything. So that's why the rishis, they say that have a good combination of your effort as well as grace. Combination of both. And that's what yoga sadhana is. Yoga sadhana is a phenomenal way to prepare the system to be open to new possibilities. Your sadhana is a test for opening you up and a test for your openness. So these are inseparable. You really cannot separate them. Grace and effort, doing and receiving. Because if you separate it, it is very unrealistic. And that will not work largely. Because there are some devotees, they don't want to do anything. They want to only receive. And they're devotees, they say, no, with my own effort, I will do it. So remember, in our sadhana, we got to just have both of these. We have to understand what grace is. Always remember, grace is there for all of us. It's not that God is being graceful to somebody and not to others. His grace is everywhere. But do we receive it or not? It's almost like a sun when it's shining everywhere. It's up to us whether we want to sit under the sun or keep our windows open, curtains open, enjoy that sunlight, or do we want to just hide ourselves in the cave or in a basement of our home? So grace is just like that. But in order to feel that grace, we got to make an effort, just like we got to come out to feel the sunshine or the sunlight. That is doing, then it's there. So in order to receive God's grace, we got to do our duties. We got to learn how to live as a human beings in this beautiful planet of ours. We got to keep on reducing the selfishness for our personality. Learn to live for others more and more and more. All those criteria which we learn from Bhagavad Gita, from Yoga Sutras, from other scriptures, all of those are the guidelines to live as a sadhak's life. That is our yoga sadhana. So whatever we remember, try to do that. So you will feel God's grace also. So let's stop it here. Om Purnamata Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.